Okay, last but not least, Mercury and Chiron. This video is about Mercury and Chiron. I'm making a series of videos about Chiron, and if you want to know a bit more about Chiron specifically and about healing, you can check out the other videos that I did about Chiron and the Sun and Chiron and the Moon, and I will put the link below. So, let's get started about Mercury and Chiron. This is a very unique one, a very special one, because when we mix those two together, Mercury, the planet of communication, the planet of understanding, the planet of having a message and having someone else receiving that message, in combination with Chiron, the wounded healer. When someone has this in a natal chart, there is something about being heard. So there is pain involved with communication. There is pain involved, probably with not being heard, or no one that listened to this person. So whenever this person tries to communicate, tries to get an idea or an opinion or has an opinion about something, they are reminded about the pain and about the wounds. So that is key here. Now, first of all, what is it? And then we are going to look at where does it come from, and then what if you are healing this aspect and what is that all about? But first of all, what is it? Well, again, as I said in the other videos, it can be different scenarios. One scenario, or one of the scenarios could be that that you were not understood when you were younger or in childhood. Or maybe that you had a parent that was extremely intelligent, so extremely Mercury, and that you felt as if you couldn't match that level. Although it certainly doesn't mean to say that you are less intellectual. On the contrary, a lot of people who have this are maybe dyslexic, and on the other hand, they can be like genius in other areas, like in other thinking areas, like with playing chess, being a genius in playing chess, but on the other hand, having difficulties to express themselves. What else can it be? It can be that as a little child, you weren't allowed to speak for some reason. Because of that, there's nothing wrong with your speech, but because of that, you have difficulties in expressing it when you are a bit older. Let me give you an example, and the example that I give is of someone I know, and of course it's to the extreme here, so I'm certainly not saying if you've got Mercury in an angle or in a conjunction with Chiron that will be the case of you. Of course not, everyone is unique, but the message is this not being able to speak. That is the key message. I know someone who he is a client of my boyfriend, and he was in our house and just having a coffee, and he stutters. I don't know if that is the good word, but you know, he has difficulty with speaking, so he stutters. And he wrote a book about that. And he was here in Ghent, where I live, to give a speech, a workshop about this book and about this handicap he says he has. And I thought, wow, isn't that a bit hard? You know, it's your hardest thing that you've got. It's so struggling, and every time you're in front of a public, because he did this on a regular basis, going to many schools and all of that. Isn't that every time again that pain that comes up because, you know, you have trouble with speech? And he said, yes, actually it is. And that's why I'm going to stop, he said. He said, now I've been heard and I can continue. And in his chart, he had a Mercury in Sagittarius, so quite a weak Mercury. conjunct the Sun, so a Mercury that is already combust by the Sun, and squaring up to Chiron. So it was not a conjunction. And his squaring up to Chiron, and actually that Chiron was also linked with the Moon and with Saturn. So it was a very hard configuration, you can say. And all of that opposed Pluto and Uranus. So, and again, Saturn also squared up to his Mercury, which is in itself already a hard aspect. So his chart was really shouting this enormous challenge, not just a little bit of a challenge, but an enormous challenge with saying your truth, I suppose. And oh boy, my goodness, he did well with that aspect. I mean, he could have gone the other way and really having a lot of maybe being depressed or whatever. And I'm not saying that he didn't have those stages, but the thing I'm wanting to say is what is, and sometimes you see that in a chart, what is someone's most challenge can become something that is their life path. So like with a Mercury and a Chiron, that in itself can be a work for a lifetime. And this person was having his Chiron return as well. So it was like, you know, it was like for a big part, not all of it, but for a big part, it was healed. And what also was very typical, I think, for this Mercury Chiron is a sense of humor that he had. Mercury is associated with humor, and especially in a Jupiterian ruled sign like Sagittarius or Pisces. And he even told this story about himself in difficult situations, like he does sculptures, and he had a client who couldn't hear. So he had troubles with speaking, and he had a client who couldn't hear. So what did the client do? The client was listening to what he was saying by reading his lips. But of course, if you stutter, you know, he saw his client having the head like this, like looking, what the hell is this man telling me? And the way that he expressed this, and the way that he expressed it in his book, is phenomenal. It is one of the best. It's a Dutch book, but it's one of the best books I've ever read, and it is so serious, but at the same time it is such a laugh. And I think that says a lot about Chiron, you know, the pain, and Mercury, the mind that tries to get over it, you could say. So that was just a little example, but every time when Mercury is there conjunct Chiron, there will be, not in this extreme way, but there will be stress involved when expressing yourself. I had a client the other day that was a lawyer, so it's certainly not that you're not good in speech, but she was a lawyer, and she was so strict on herself about how her message would get over, how other people would receive and perceive her message. She was making it such a pressure upon herself in order to speak and in order to do it the right way, which is also Mercury, of course, the ruler of Virgo and of Gemini. So it's about making links and gathering information and processing it and then delivering it. And in one of the processes, it goes a bit wrong there, or it is a bit difficult. So, but if you've got this Mercury conjunct Chiron, it is certainly something very unique, and it is certainly something that you will have, if you haven't done already. It will really be interesting for you to try to understand where this comes from, this pain and this fear of communication. And I've known people with this Chiron conjunct Mercury who say, but Veerle, really, I haven't had a bad youth, or everything went okay with me, and people always, my parents did listen to me and all of that. Well, maybe in other lives. Of course, you can't have testimonies here, but maybe you weren't allowed to speak, or you lived in a monastery, or really every time that you had a certain profession that you were that this being silent was necessary, or that you weren't allowed, or you did something, or a lie, or whatever that has made you suffering because of that, whether it is a small lie or a huge lie, anything like that. Of course, it's difficult when you're not seeing yourself in a spiritual level to think about other lives. I'm certainly not a specialist in that. But even then, you can look at your situation when you were a child, which is very important. And maybe, because Mercury is also associated with brothers and sisters, with siblings, maybe there was a sibling that was older, that said shut up all the time and you weren't allowed to speak, or there were troubles with siblings, because Mercury is also associated with siblings. Or maybe you had a mom and a dad who were very strict, or who were very dominant, and your opinion wasn't allowed there. I mean, at home. So that could have been the case. So many scenarios, and it's very, very important to think back of that time to understand where it comes from, that fear that you have. For certain people it will be just the fear of telling something in public when this Chiron is in your 10th house, for instance. It will have to do with your work, or maybe it's in your 7th house, relationships, and you will have troubles there to say the truth, to say your truth in a relationship. And maybe you think you say too much and then you feel ashamed, or maybe you think you haven't said anything and then you feel bad about yourself as well. So it all is a bit about that kind of energy, where the wound is, where the speech is, and where you want to say your truth. So it's about not being satisfied easily as well with talking. So yes, it's very important to have a look at that. But once you know where it comes from, you know what happened when you were a kid, and you know why this is a challenge for you, then the interesting part comes in, because then the healing starts to open up for you. And with this Chiron conjunct Mercury, it is really all about being heard, and it is really all about listening to others. So as soon as you see that you have a good ear for other people, you are listening to others, and people with that aspect have really that empathy, that understanding the Mercury of other people's problem, then you are starting to heal yourself. Then this healing process comes in and is accelerating, because when you understand other people, you are understanding yourself, you are forgiving yourself as well, and off you go. Or by also speaking for other people. You could say that as well. If you have, like this lawyer person, that this client, she speaks for other people, and because of that she kind of heals herself by speaking up and making other people listen to her, listen to the message that she has, and that is of course a healing process. So being a powerful speaker and a powerful, or a writer, as this person that I know, this this man who stuttered, he wrote a book, he does workshops, he sculptures. So actually, even when you can't speak physically, there are other opportunities, there are other alternatives where you express yourself with the mind, whether it is architecture, whether it is art, whether it is music that you make, whether it is a genius book that you write, and so on and so on. So there is because when this aspect starts to become more healed, the unknown becomes more known, and it depends on where your Mercury is situated. In a fire sign or in a water sign, it will be more have to do with intuitive understanding, or maybe it is in an air sign and it's very logical. So it really depends on the position as well. And you can use your mind at a certain level. You will be able to use your mind to affect your own healing and to spread that message that other people can hear from you. Another last thing I want to say is that these people have this tremendous talent to speak at a certain time, at a certain place, at the right time, at the right place, and they can do that. They can do that. They can, with their words, they can heal others, whether it is with a whole book, or whether it is with a sentence, or whether it is something healing to say. You know, those times that when we don't know what to say, or most people, we don't know what to say when someone we've lost that has died and that we've loved. These people will be able to say something and it will heal. So, and they have this thing with timing. So it's also very important, I think, when you are how do you say that in English? A comedian, a comedian or a stand-up comedian. Timing is something very important. People who've got Mercury and Chiron have this as well. They have this feeling for a good timing and a knowing when to say what to say. Of course, when it is known and understood, when it knows where it comes from, and when they had not only the return, because that only happens once every 50 years, but when you've got a transit on that Mercury, or on a progressed Mercury, or on that Chiron, there are opportunities, especially with long-term planets, there are opportunities to heal this. So, this was the last one of this series of Mercury, of Chiron actually. I really did enjoy it. And if you want me to make another series, just let me know. Maybe I'll do that. And wishing you all the best, and thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.